Hey, thanks for stopping into my lesson on Santeria by Sublime. A really great tune from, gosh, I think like 1992-ish. So it's another song that dates me back a little bit because I was there, man, when this song was cool and it was on the radio. And I was just a young buck with my guitar and, trying to play me some Santeria, and I couldn't figure it out. So it only took me, like 20 years to come up with this lesson for you. So I hope it helps you out. So anyway, I covered 3 parts in the intro there. Basically, I covered the chords. I played the melody, which actually isn't really part of the song, but I just did like some lead melody stuff. But then I also did the actual electric guitar solo from the song, or at least my interpretation of all these parts. And what I'm going to do is just put the timestamp for all those parts down in the description in case you don't want to learn one of the parts. You can just jump to the part you want to learn and then go from there. Also, while you're down in the description, go ahead and hit the old subscribe button and also look at some of my other resources I have to help you learn how to play guitar. All right, let's go ahead and get started. All right, so we're going to start out with the chords here. So just kind of thinking a little bit more advanced. This isn't really geared towards beginners playing with a capo or anything like that. But you can be a beginner and give this a try. It's just, different chords, different shapes, some bar chords. So you're going to have to, just rewind a bunch and practice a bunch to get it. But it's totally doable. I learned how to play bar chords at a young age, and I think it's important for every guitar player to learn how to play bar chords at some point. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get started. The first chord is your index finger is going to start here on the 7th fret of the A string. And then your ring finger is going to bar across the 9th fret of the D, G, and the B string. Alright, so the strum pattern that I'm using for this is, I guess you could consider it like a sort of, it's almost like a reggae or ska strum pattern. So you're going to pluck the bass note, the lowest note in the chord first. Then you're going to pluck the strings and you kind of palm mute as you are plucking the chord. So slowed down. All right. So that's the first chord. The second chord is going to be index finger on the 4th fret. So you're going to just bar across the 4th fret of all the strings. So the way that I play bar chords is you sneak your finger right up on top of that fret as much as you can. You kind of overlap your finger over the fret that you're trying to hold the strings down onto. So you overlap that. If you play back here, you're going to have to press harder and you're going to get more of those buzz, sort of muted sounding strings. So you don't want that. You want to be right up on the fret, overlapping it a little bit. So what we're going to do now is add an E shape on top of that bar. So you're going to put your middle finger here on the 5th fret of the G, ring finger 6th fret of the A, pinky 6th fret of the D. Alright, so what that is again the lowest note followed by, right? So here's what we got so far. Alright, so the next chord, you just keep that shape, that exact shape that you have there, and you hop every finger down 1 string. So it stays in the same fret, everything just hops down 1 string. So what that is a C-sharp minor chord. And what you're doing basically now is you're barring across the 1st through the 5th string, and your middle finger is now down here on the 5th fret of the B, ring finger is on 6th fret of the D, pinky right underneath that on 6th fret of the G. Okay, and again, we've got that same deal on the strum pattern. So here's what we got. Last chord is very similar to the second chord. So the second chord was that bar across the 4th fret, that G sharp bar chord. So this time we're going to just move that shape up to 7th fret. So your index now bars across the 7th fret of all the strings. Again, you know, overlap that fret a little bit to get everything pressed down. Then your middle finger is going to set here on the 8th fret of the G, ring finger, 9th fret of the A, and pinky, 9th fret of the D. Okay. So there you have the chords to the verse. And it'll do that twice. All right, now we're going to get into, I guess you could call it the pre-chorus / chorus part of the song, where he sings What I Really Want to Know. So what you do is you just slide down here to 5th fret, that same chord shape. You were just on that B bar chord. Slide down to the 5th fret, that's an A bar chord. Okay. So now the chords are going to move a little quicker on this part. So they're going to change relatively quicker. So that's the feel of that part. Now let's look at it. So we've got that A bar chord. So index finger barring across the 5th fret with that E shape in front of it. Then you're going to slide up to 7th fret. Then you're going to go to the first chord, that E, I guess you could call it E bar chord. It's not really a typical bar chord though, because that ring finger is the one doing most of the barring there. All right, so that's all you play when you get to that chord, because you're going to walk down to the next chord. So, all right. Now the next chord is a B over D sharp. So to play that, you're going to play, your index finger is going to play right here on the 6th fret of the A, middle finger right here, 7th fret of B, ring finger right here, 8th fret of G, and pinky way up here on that what is that, 9th fret of the D. So this is a good walk down chord. It's a good sounding chord to give that walk down effect from that E bar chord. Okay. Now we're going to go to that C sharp minor. All right. So that's that same chord. That would be the 3rd chord of the verse. So there you go. So here's what we've got. All right. So one more time, a little slower. So that whole part of the progression happens 3 times total. So let's go ahead and take it from the verse going into the pre-chorus chorus. So we've got. to verse. Alright, so those are all the chords. Let's go ahead and move on to the melody section. Alright, so let's go ahead and take a look at the melody section. So I'm not going to be like super duper instructional on this part. So what I'm going to do actually is zoom in on this area of the fretboard, because a lot of this is played around the 9th fret of the G. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom that in, and then we will get started. Okay, so we're going to start the melody with our index finger on the 9th fret of the G, which is an E note, which is the key of the song. So if you're thinking ahead, you probably guessed it, we're playing part of a scale. We're actually using the E major scale to play this melody. So you're also going to use this to play the solo if any of you are going to move on to that section. So just to explain the basics of the scale to you really quick, it's based off of the E major scale. So that's essentially it. You can look up the E major scale in 9th position. I'm sure many different places online, so go ahead and check that out if you need to. So what you want to do is start with your index finger here on that 9th fret. So that's the first riff. So that's a pull off from 11 to 9. All right, so we got that's pretty easy. So you're just bouncing back and forth between the D and A string. Just moving that ring finger back and forth. So that's... So let's look at all that kind of slow. So moving on to the second section, it's very similar to that first section. So now this is the pre-chorus, chorus. Alright, so that was... So there's a lot there. So go ahead and rewind that a bunch of times and see if you can maybe just slow down the playback to 0.75 and see if you can kind of get some of that melody. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the guitar solo section. All right, so now we're on to the guitar solo section here. Now I'm going to kind of handle this the same way that I handled the melody. So it'll be up to you to kind of slow down the video using the YouTube player. Just go ahead and slow it down to 0.75 or whatever when you need to hear things slower. So with that being said, Let's go ahead, I'll just kind of play each phrase and then explain it. So the first phrase is so it starts on the 7th fret, again, like the first chord of the song, starting on that 7th fret of the A string. So you're going to use your your index finger there, and then you're going to take your ring finger and slide from 9 to 11. All right. So that's a little walk up there to the 9th fret of the G. All right. All right. Next is going to be a bend. So your ring finger is going to set down here. So what it is a bend, then a pluck at the top of the bend, and you let it return. So here's what we've got. All right. One more time. All right, so now we're moving down a little bit. We're moving to that 8th fret of the G. So it's pluck, pluck, slide down to 6. All right. Then your ring finger will go back to that 8th fret of the G and do a pluck, bend, return. All right. Now you're going to shift down so your ring finger is on the 6th fret of the G. So that's pluck, pluck, pull off to 6th fret of the D. So your ring finger will then jump down to 6th fret of the D. Then back to 4th fret of the G. So here's what we got. Next move, your index finger jumps up to 4th fret of the D. So that's 2nd fret of D. 4th fret of D. So from one more time. One more time. A little slower. We have the big walk up, which is so it's 2nd fret, hammer to 3rd fret, hammer to 4th fret on the E and the A. So that's index, then ring, hammer, 4th fret of D, slide to 6th fret of D. So that's hammer from 4 to 6 of G. fret of B. All right. So here's what we got so far. Now, you might want to rewind and practice with this a couple times. I'll try to go a little slower. So one more time, all of that. All right, so let's go ahead and look at the next section. It sounds like this. So here's what we've got. We're going to start with our pinky on the 12th fret of the B, and we're going to bend it up and then pluck. Our index finger is going to set down on the 9th fret of the high E. One more time. So that's just 11th fret of G. So it's a bend, return, pull off to index finger on 9th fret of the G. So that's the next thing. All right. One more time. The next thing. So that's a hammer. So that's a little slide from 8 to 9. A little slower. All right, next thing. So that's ring finger 9 to 11, slide on the A, middle finger 10th fret of the D. So it's then both of them together. All right, which brings us to the final phrase, ring finger 11th fret of the B and G string. So then your index finger sets in bars across the high E, B, and G. So you've got plucking the B and G, bending up, and then plucking from the high E to the B to the G. So let's run the whole thing really slow. All right, I hope that helped you get a good start on this song. I know it's a difficult one, so it's one of those ones you got to just rewind 1,000 times and, you know, just listen and just try to mimic what I'm doing on the fretboard. And maybe in 20 years, no, I'm just kidding. But I mean, some songs are like that. You know, you visit a song and you try to learn it at one point in your guitar playing journey and you can't get it, and that's okay. What you do is you just revisit it again and again, and eventually one day you get it and it's like super easy and you're like, why was that so hard for me for so long? But really it's just a matter of practice. Again, the E major scale up on the 9th fret, that's a good box to learn, so go ahead and check that out. Don't forget to subscribe and check out the description for some links to my other resources, and I'll see you on the next lesson.